changing your life one story at a time. This is the Chicken Soup for the Soul podcast with Editor-in-Chief Amy Newmark.
Hey, it's Amy Newmark with your Chicken Soup for the Soul, and I am so happy to be sharing new stories with you from Chicken Soup for the Soul, What I Learned from My Cat. This is our latest best-selling book of cat stories. It just came out. And I have to say that we were overwhelmed with submissions for this book. We were collecting stories for 2 full years, which is a lot for us. And it just seemed like every cat owner had a story about how their cat improved their life, made them a better person, or taught them how to live in the moment, and lots of good things like that. But first, of course, you have to actually get a cat. And for people who have always considered themselves to be dog people, that's your big first step. So today I'm sharing a couple of stories about just that, starting with one by Victoria Lurekovich Miller. So Victoria was an adoption counselor at a shelter. It was up to her to help people find their perfect rescue. And one day she sat down with a woman who had filled out her questionnaire and was looking for a dog. So Victoria said, "Okay, let's get started. I see that you're looking for a puppy today at the shelter." And the woman said, "Yes, but one that is potty trained." So Victoria said, "Okay, we can't guarantee that in a puppy. Perhaps an older dog would be better." But the woman resisted and she said, "No, I'd like a puppy. One that's not too big, though, or too small. Also, I want a dog that won't bark at people or other animals or when the doorbell rings." And then she said that she also didn't want a dog who pulls on a leash. In fact, she didn't even want a dog that would go on walks. And then she went on that she also didn't want a dog that drooled, and she didn't want a dog that would smell bad, and she didn't want a dog that would beg at the table. Victoria tried to explain that most dogs like to go on walks, and that a lot of the things that this lady didn't want in a dog were pretty much expected in a dog. So the lady added that she also didn't want a dog that was needy because she liked her own space. So Victoria thought about all these requirements, and then she said, "Well, you are in luck. I have the perfect girl for you. Her name is Lucy. Follow me." And then she took the lady to see a cat, and she explained, "It turns out that your perfect dog is actually a cat. Hence, Lucy the cat was deemed the perfect dog, and she found her perfect new home." I love that story from Victoria. And if you have your own stories to share with our readers, go ahead and visit chickensoup.com and check out the Submit Your Stories section of our website. We're collecting stories for several new books right now that will be published in 2025 and 2026. And with 101 stories in each book, that means that there are hundreds of opportunities for you to become a published author with Chicken Soup for the Soul. All right, so let's go on to our second story about when a dog person becomes a cat person. And this story is from Rebecca Rubalis. And she was out for a walk with her dog one day when they both heard the mewling sound of a tiny kitten. And they looked around, but they didn't see anything until Rebecca saw what looked like an oil spot next to a car in their neighbor's driveway. Now, this neighbor had a reputation for feeding feral cats. Sometimes he had dozens of them on his property. And sure enough, when Rebecca got closer to what looked like an oil spot, it turned out to be a tiny kitten. Its eyes were closed, and it fit in Rebecca's palm. One of Rebecca's daughters volunteered to take this kitten, and when she took her to the vet, they learned that she was only 2 weeks old, and her eyes were closed because she had an eye infection. Well, Rebecca's daughters figured there must be a whole litter of kittens that needed attention, so they searched the neighbor's property with his permission, and they found several more. A couple of them died, but they had 3 that made it, And then they found 2 additional kittens when they searched the property more. So now Rebecca's daughter had 5 kittens to care for. She actually did it really well, and the kittens thrived, and soon it was time to find them their permanent homes. When her daughter asked her, Rebecca explained that she was a dog person, and there was no way she could have a cat. But every time she went over to help her daughter with these kittens, there was one little black one that would curl up in her lap. And he seemed to have chosen her. So, of course, you know what happened. As the days passed, Rebecca discovered that there was more to cats than she had realized. This little black kitten, who she had already named Theo, had quite a personality. And he was smart and silly, and he made her laugh. So she took him home, but she was still a dog person, so she was just going to foster this kitten. But then he got along really great with her dog. Well, Theo ended up staying, and 2 years later, Rebecca's dog died. So now she is just a cat owner. And she says, although our pack has become smaller, Theo and I continue to find joy and comfort in each other. I can't imagine life without him. And I continue to be grateful for the lessons he's taught me. Through Theo, I've learned to not close myself off to new possibilities. Sometimes our preconceived notions have the potential to stand in the way of our happiness. I'm Amy Newmark. Thanks for listening today. I hope you'll join me next time for a special Wow Wednesday episode. So listen, can you imagine randomly choosing a vacation destination, then choosing a breakfast location far from your hotel, then sitting next to the only other occupied table in an empty restaurant, and then engaging in conversation with the people at that next table, and then discovering through that conversation that you were adopted and that you were talking to the sister that you never knew you had? Well, that is just one of the amazing family reunion stories that I'm going to share with you next time.